good.
All right.
Good? Yes, sir.
All right, Joe. Fill us in on what's going on.
10:25 a.m. we were dispatched to a robbery that occurred at the Food King behind us here at First and McKinley. And we had a good description of the suspect. Officers started fanning out and located the suspect on the canal here. They tried to stop him. He refused to stop. He kept putting his hands, he had a bag with him, backpack. He kept putting his hands in the backpack, would not take them out. In his, he had a long jacket on, same thing, refused to stop. So officers followed him at gunpoint, told him to get on the ground, refused. Came up here, we drove up on the side here. He was on this side of the canal at the time. And then you can see a patrol car behind me. That officer came up this way. The officer went up north here on the side, and the suspect saw the car there. He turned around, started walking this way. Officer confronted him with his gun. Suspect refused to take his hands out of his pockets. In fact, put his hands in the backpack, refused to pull them out. So a great deal of restraint was showed. This suspect could easily have been shot. The officer behind me in the car used a less lethal shotgun, shot the suspect, I believe, 4 times. He did go down on his knees, refused to comply, then dived into the canal, swam across on the west side of the canal. There's a small bridge there. We ran over the bridge and then had him come up on the west side and took him into custody. He was throwing things into the canal as he was swimming. I'm assuming there were things he stole from the business. And as officers were trying to stop him before we confronted him down here on the canal. So he's going to the hospital. He's bleeding, not serious injuries, so he'll be treated. The victim, I just looked at her over at the Food King. She's going to the hospital. She was in the ambulance. He beat her pretty good. She appears to be in her 60s. She was the only one in the store at the time, and he beat her pretty good. I don't know if he used a weapon. There is video there, so we're going to review that. This just happened minutes ago, so we're going to see if he used a weapon in there, but certainly his fists were a weapon. He's a good-sized guy. She is not very big at all, and he beat her up pretty good. So that's what we have right now. He'll be in custody for robbery and for the felony battery also, assault.
Did you have units in the area? You got here pretty quick.
Yeah, you know, Fresno, we have a lot of units out here. So when things like this happen, it's the highest priority call. So actually you have different districts here. It's a borderline of districts. So the officer who came up here is actually in the district over here, and the crime occurred south of McKinley, which is another district. So you have extra officers here. I was just down the street actually at the 7-Eleven, so I came on it myself too. I was close.
The victim, was she a shopper, or is she a?
It looks like she's the owner of the business.
Okay. And what kind of business is it? Is it
It's a
mini mart?
Food King mini mart, yeah, like a 7-Eleven.
So he goes in there and he immediately starts taking things.
I don't have the circumstances of how it happened. I'll put that out in the press release. I don't know. We just got the generalities of it, that he went in there, committed a robbery, and he beat the clerk pretty bad. And then it happened in just minutes, not even minutes. Then immediately, once the officers arrived here they see the suspect on the canal, right in this area here.
And what are some of her injuries? He beat her in the face, upper body?
I don't know yet. I'll put that in the update press release. Her face is swollen. She's bleeding in here a great deal. So it looks like he went beyond what he needed to do, to commit that robbery.
Did he get away with any money?
I don't know yet. I don't know.
What were some of the things that he was throwing, or what are some of the things he stole?
He had a razor here, like a shaving razor. I don't know the other things. The officers were putting it out over the air as I was driving here, and I saw them fishing things out of the water with a pole. But he did have, when he was coming up on the other side, we're going to take him into custody. He had the officer was telling me he had something here, like he had a weapon, and it was like a razor blade he would shave with. I'm assuming he stole that also from the store.
So then he leaves the store and he leaves running on foot?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
And that's when your officers found him?
Then an officer found him here in this area. He takes off this way, and the officer's putting over the air that he's not complying. He won't stop, And then when I got here, he did the same thing to me. I drove up just on this side of that car, and he did the same thing. He wouldn't stop. I had my gun on him, get on the ground, and he put his hand in the bag and refused to remove it. So it's that close to a shooting situation. So
wow, you were on hand. I mean, give us an insight on at what point were you going to
It was close. It was really close. I was the closest one to him. The other officer was coming up north of him with the less lethal shotgun. So it was very close to a shooting situation.
Can you give us a description of the suspect? Anything you remember about him?
He's a Hispanic male. He's a good-sized guy. Appears to be about 5'10", I'd say 225 in weight. He had a black jacket on. The description we have in the call, the suspect that fled, matches him.
And
So,
about what age?
he appears to be in his 30s.
4 beanbags and it didn't stop him?
No, it hit him. Well, sometimes with the beanbag, especially if you have a thick coat on, which a lot of us do now because it's cold, it's not as effective.
So how rare is that though?
No, that happens with the beanbag. It can happen if you don't hit him exactly in the right spot. He was hit. The officer hit him though, right in the back. So he did go to the ground. So he dropped his bag. Once he was hit with the beanbag, he did go to the ground on his knees, then on his belly. Then as we were going up to arrest him, then he dives in the canal and he swims across the other side.
Did you ever find a weapon on him?
I don't know. I left right after that. I left to check on the victim. So I don't know on the suspect. I will. They'll let me know, and I'll put it in the update.